I don't know why it has taken me this long to talk about the Pirate Queen, and I'm only talking about the soundtrack because I have never had the benefit or the delight of seeing this on stage. It doesn't really get shown very much. I think there have been some amateur productions at some point, but it was on Broadway in 2007, and it ran, according to Wikipedia, for 85 regular performances and 32 previews. It did not have an extensive run. There are people, if you look at it on YouTube, there are various different either productions of it or people singing songs from it. So you can get a real sense of what it's like. But I just wanted to stress that I've never actually seen this because I've never had the opportunity. And I hope that this gets another chance to shine. Maybe in the West End this time. But the CD, the soundtrack, I've listened to at least once every 6 months. I kind of revisit it. But back in 2012, when I discovered this, I started listening to it every day. And my second novel, Celestial Land and Sea, is based on the life of Grace OMalley, or Granuaile, and Granuaile is the very subject of the Pirate Queen. So I will talk a little bit about what it's actually about, and I just want to mention some songs that I love, but basically I'm discussing this because not a lot of people know about it, compared to other Boublil and Schönberg musicals. It is a musical with the music by Schönberg and the lyrics by Boublil. For information, the English lyrics were adapted by Richard Maltby Jr. and John Dempsey. And the songs I love, the lyrics I love, but the story is what obviously drew this to me. So basically my novel, Celestial Land and Sea, is a novelized version of this, but it's actually based on truth. Maybe truth that's got bits of fantasy in it, but it's based on the life of Granuaile, Grace OMalley, or Grania OMalley, who was an Irish chieftain and pirate in the 16th century. She's from Mayo. She came over to England to have an audience with Queen Elizabeth I. And that's the primary message, or the primary story in The Pirate Queen. It's about her coming over, meeting the Queen, but it's also about who she ends up marrying. Obviously, this is a time when women were married off for dowry, and there are people a person who she is being forced to marry, but there's a stronger love interest who she'd rather be with. Darnell is certainly an interesting character, and Tiernan is rather brilliant. And I won't say too much more about the characters or the relationships with Grania because that's kind of part of the fun if you're unaware of it. Obviously, discovering these characters, their relationships and things, and we do have a great mix of casting characters in here. Grania is performed by, but sung by, and sung in terms of the soundtrack, sung by Stephanie J. Block, who does a fantastic job of bringing this character to life. Grania is really inspiring and very fascinating, and as I said, I wrote an entire novel about her existence, and I really adored her. But I have to say, Linda Balgord as Elizabeth I, I loved the attitude that came across. I got this real sense that she was very fiery and very spirited. The same as Granuaile. They are very similar in a lot of ways, even though they are from two very different places in the same time, and they have obviously very different walks of life, but despite the contrasts, they are two women with a lot of power, and it's so fascinating to see them coming together. The songs that they sing are just absolutely splendid, and I guess I should talk about the soundtrack now because that's my only reference point for this. As I've said, I have seen other bits and pieces of performances, but I've never seen it on stage, and I'd love to. But the beautiful thing about listening to it first is that I have staged it in my head. Not the entire thing, but certain songs that I love more than others, I've staged it. I can see the costumes in my head. I can see the set designs. I'd love to see if any of that is actually what it was actually like. I doubt it. But it's a lot of fun. And one of the things that I love about exploring a musical through the soundtrack for the first time rather than seeing it is it opens up to a lot of creativity. The songs. The Pirate Queen, beautiful song. These are in kind of chronological order rather than order of preference. I'm not going through every song. There are some beautiful songs in this. But the ones that stand out to me the most, Woman, is a song that Grace sings. And there's a beautiful line in this. Woman, I am born, what does woman mean? It's so beautiful, and it's all about, because Grace stands as an emblem for a woman with power in a time when women had no power. And the song addresses this very quickly, very early on in the first act, and it basically says, I am Granuaile, I am Grace OMalley. As a woman, I should not be able to take on this journey. But she does, and she's beautiful for it. Her father sings a song called My Grace, and it's all about him. My child, my Grace. And it's all about him realising that his daughter has grown up. She's ready to take the helm, and he doesn't obviously want to let her go, but he realises that he has raised a very spirited daughter with a lot of fight in her. Here on This Night is absolutely beautiful. It's a song sung primarily by Grace and Terra. The choice is mine. I love. It's another one by Grace. Most of my favourite ones are Grace. Boys Will Be Boys is one of the first really upbeat songs, and this is surrounding the questionable marriage that may be taking place, and it's sung primarily by Donal and his male friends, if you like, basically the people who are on Donal's side, and it's very negative towards women. It's boys will be boys, the kind of the classic saying. But I love the song. And then we have I'll Be There, sung by Tiernan, Grace's potential love interest. And I love this song. This is undoubtedly, this and Woman are my two favourite songs in the entire thing. And I just adore it. It's utterly sensational. As I've mentioned before with musicals, I don't have the vocabulary to pick apart songs in terms of the composition. I am viewing it or listening to it as a musicals fan rather than a music expert. That's something I should have mentioned earlier. But I'll Be There, I absolutely love. And maybe Sail to the Stars is a favourite. But certainly, I feel like I'll Be There is my favourite from Act 1 along with Woman. I Dismiss You is very powerful. It's a song with Grace and Donal, and it's just sensational. It's so strong and so striking. And then straight after that, we get If I Said I Loved You, which is Grace and Tiernan, and it's much softer and much more delicate and really reflects the differences in the relationships between Grace and Donal and Grace and Tiernan. And I think that works very well. And then finally, we get a song from Queen Elizabeth that I love. It's not the first Elizabeth song, but the first one that really stands out for me is The Role of the Queen. It's a song that also includes Lord Bingham. Bingham is a very fun character to write. He does feature in my novel. I really enjoy that song a lot. Woman to Woman I like, which is a song with Elizabeth and Grace. But it's not my favourite. And in the second act, I feel like the songs just aren't quite as engaging or aren't quite as enjoyable as they are in the first act. But maybe at that point, the narrative's a bit more compelling because things really get to the meatiness of it. We get to explore Grace's relationships more. We obviously get the meeting with Queen Elizabeth, and things are a lot more intense and a lot more gripping. So the music kind of slides away. It's not terrible, there's nothing wrong with it, but there are no songs in the second act that I love, truly love. But there are a lot that I enjoy. But the narrative for me is more interesting in the second act. So if you've never listened to The Pirate Queen and you like Boublil and Schönberg, definitely give it a listen. It's never going to be hailed in the same way as, say, Lament, but I think the quality is almost just as good. I don't know why it had such a short run. I mean, I'm assuming obviously it's because ticket sales weren't that glorious. It didn't have the best reception. But honestly, I really thoroughly enjoy it, and I would love to see it on stage one day. That is a bucket list dream of mine that may never be realised, because who knows when it will be staged properly again. But I love it. Definitely listen to it. Obviously, I thoroughly recommend you check out my novel Celestial Land and Sea. According to Wikipedia, this is based on Grania, She-King of the Irish Seas, which is a book by Morgan Llewellyn. I believe Morgan Llewellyn wrote a few books about Granuaile. When I was doing research for my novel, I did own every Grania OMalley book going, and Morgan Llewellyn is a great source of information. Definitely one that I loved. Don't know why it's taken me this long to talk about it, but I'm glad I finally did. I really, really love the Pirate Queen.